Yeah, when Loike asked me if I can come to Toulouse to talk about plugins, I was flattered, obviously, but I thought that's probably not going to work because I have a wife and 3 kids. And then I told my wife, and she said we're going to Toulouse. Yeah, so obviously here I am. The talk is about creating plugins. I have created quite a few plugins along the years, along with some Symfony bundles. And what I like when I hear talks is if I can get some practical advice on how to improve my coding. And when I prepared this talk, I kind of thought, how do I synthesize what I've learned the last few years creating plugins into a small talk. So what I've done is that I have these 13 tips or practices that I use in almost every plugin, and hopefully you'll get 1 or 2 insights that you can take home with you to improve your plugins or your code. Yes. The first one, kind of an obvious one. Define your dependencies. So how would you actually use a package or library if you don't define it? But in the community, what I see is something like this. I don't know if you can see the screen, but what I see in a lot of plugins is that they will require Sylius as the main package, and then a few other dependencies that are not inside this huge package. And this opens up your plugin to a huge matrix of dependencies that you kind of indirectly support. What I like to do is to do something like this instead. What I've done here is that I've defined all the dependencies that I use in this plugin. And you might think that's harder to maintain, Joachim. But actually it's not. Of course, I have a tool to actually define these dependencies. And what it also gives me is that instead of defining Sylius, for example, supporting 1.12 or 1.13 or 2.0 or whatever it might be, I support the underlying Symfony dependencies, and this actually gives my plugins longer lifetimes. So there'll be a longer lifetime that my release will work in any given Sylius version than if you just declared the Sylius dependency. Also, it's my opinion that your package will actually be more robust because your GitHub Actions should actually test these dependencies. So your GitHub Action will tell you if you're using something that's not available in some kind of matrix of dependencies, right? This one. Also something that I've struggled a lot with. Just so we're all on the same page, this is semantic versioning. Semantic versioning is something that we all think we know, we all hope that everybody else knows it, and we cross our fingers and everybody adheres to it, right? Because when we upgrade, we kind of trust that the people doing the packages actually know what they're doing, so they don't break our application. What happens in the real world, this is not to shame Symfony. Symfony is probably the best at doing backwards compatibility things and backward compatibility layers. But just so you know, the best ones in the business, they also struggle with this sometimes. So chances are that that you'll do it too. I use a tool, obviously, to do it, because what I did in the past was that I thought I'll catch those breaking changes in the pull request. I know my code. I know what's happening. I have it in my head. The fact is that that doesn't work that way. So I use this great tool from Rove that will tell me on each pull request if I've broken anything. Yes. Back in the day when I started writing plugins, the installation process could sometimes be 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 10 steps. And I've tried to minimize that over the years because eventually the more steps you have in your installation process will lead to issues on your repository where people, they say, your plugin doesn't work. And I ask, did you follow the installation instructions? Yes, no, yes. So you go back and forth. So what's better is that if you can actually minimize the installation process for plugins, one of the ways to do that is that this is an example here from the gift card plugin where I ask users to import that, but instead what you, in my opinion, should do is to use this functionality inside the extension where you can prepend configuration to the application. This is an example from the Maily Search plugin where I need a cache, I need a command bus, and I'll also inject something using the Sylius UI library. Yes, this is something that I really think we can learn a lot from Symfony on. When you install something from Symfony, usually in 80, 90, 95% of the cases, it'll just work out of the box, right? It just works. And if it doesn't work in your particular case, they'll have great configuration that you can just tweak, or you can override a single service. I believe that we should kind of try to aspire to the same in the Sylius community. This is an example from again from the Maily Search plugin. The Maily Search plugin is a plugin to actually search in Maily Search, which is a search engine. And you might have a lot of things that you want to do in your store, but what you would expect out of the box, I believe, is that when you have a Sylius store, you can search products. So this configuration should be the default in that plugin, where you have a product document that you will send to Maily Search, and that product document is based on the Sylius product entity, right, or resource. So that will be the default. It makes a lot of sense. If you want to configure it, you can do that, but out of the box, this is how you would expect it to work, right? Another example from the same plugin, you would also expect that if you have the before mentioned configuration, that your Sylius products that are disabled, they won't end up in the index, right? You don't want your disabled products to be searchable. At least that's what you expect, right? But that, of course, doesn't happen magically, so you need to do that in the plugin. The same goes for actually creating the indexes. In search, it's very common that you denormalize your data. So if you take a default Sylius installation as an example, you'll have the fashion web shop that you may know. Then you'll have some locals, and you'll have some currencies. What you usually do in search is that you'll have an index where it's for the channel, so the search or the fashion web in English, in euros, right? So that simplifies stuff a lot when you query the search engine, because then you'll have a float or integer, whatever you want, for the price. For the name, you'll just have a string, and you can query it, and it will return the results on that particular context that your user is on, right? Another example from back in the days that I've improved, I hope. I did this a lot back in the days. That was also an installation process, or in the installation steps. If I needed some data for my plugin to work, I would ask the user to implement an interface. In this case, this is a plugin that integrates with a warehouse management system. So when an order comes in to Sylius, I will push that order to the warehouse management system, which is called Peak. And I, of course, needed a state on the order. I would have to know if the order has been pushed, right? So in the old days, I would do something like this. What I do now is to just create my own entity. So I try to keep the code inside my own plugin so that the developer using my plugin doesn't have to know anything about all the things moving around behind the scenes. And I can save as much as I want here. I don't clutter the Sylius entities. You can see here that I saved both the response, the request that it has been sent, if there were any errors, also the external ID in the warehouse management system. Yes. Along the same lines, I try to use objects instead of mixed data or arrays a lot. This is from the same plugin. So instead of sending back and forth just arrays to this warehouse management system, I would create a class called sales order that would have the properties, the objects, whatever it might be, that a sales order is made up of, right? I use this wonderful tool or library called Valinor that will take this JSON payload that you get from the system and then convert it into this object, this DTO. You'll also, of course, it will break, obviously, the Valinor or throw an exception if it doesn't match, which is also pretty nice. Again, an example from the Mail Search plugin. This is an object this is the one that you saw before in the configuration. This is the product document. So you can make this document any way you want. You can add the properties that you want, and that document will then be serialized and then sent to Mail Search. In my opinion, the developer experience here is also pretty nice because we use attributes. So the actual configuration of that plugin for the user more or less is inside this document. You can see there's a filterable attribute, a facetable attribute. Also, you can tell which properties are sortable. So you kind of almost configure the whole plugin just in this small class. And this is, in fact, the default one. So if you don't do anything, it'll just work out of the box. Another example that you may have also encountered is that sometimes you define an interface like this, but then 5 months later or something, you need another parameter to this method, which would be a breaking change. So instead of doing something like this, where you have the arguments and returning an array, what I believe you should do is to have objects representing both the arguments and the return value. This way you are able to actually add a parameter without breaking anything. Yes, data providers. This is more or less the same as you saw before with the order interface with Peak. This is also an installation step usually back in the days, but now instead of asking people to implement an interface for the repositories because I need some data in the plugin, I will do a data provider instead. You can see this case that there is a few caveats. If you do this, what if another plugin also need the latest products, but they'll return something else, or they need another argument to the find latest method? Then you'll have a conflict. This is an example from the Mail Search plugin. So this is also comes out of the box. You have the interface that tells you what do I need. There'll be a default implementation that actually gives me what I need. If you need to do something else, you can easily decorate this. You can hook into the flow because there's an event that's being dispatched. Also, if you want to override it, very easy. Just implement the interface this leads to this one. Also something that we really can learn from Symfony. Symfony is amazing at dispatching events, letting you configure everything inside the configuration. So let's try to do something like that. You can, in the Sylius plugin, you're allowed to change the services that actually do the indexing or do the data provision. But also, look, the example from before here, it's such a small thing, but just imagine if that event isn't fired. So if that event isn't fired, if you needed to add something to the query builder, you would have to actually override the whole service just to do that small thing. Another pattern that I use a lot, that Symfony uses a lot, that Sylius uses a lot, I love it. This is in the Sylius plugin where we map from an entity, so that could be the product entity inside Sylius. We map data from that to a document, and that document could obviously be the product document that you saw before. So when a product is coming in here, there'll be some data mappers that have each of their own responsibilities. There'll be some for populating the tags and codes, the product data, attributes, whatever you need. Also, if you want another property on this document, you'll just add it, and then you'll implement the data mapper interface, which will be registered automatically, and it'll just work. Yeah, mutation tests. Not something that I see a lot, so we'll just do a small, very bad example. This is a calculator, as you can see. Now we want to test this, so we want to have 100% code coverage. Now we achieved 100% code coverage in a very bad way, as you can see, because we're only asserting that the return result is an integer. But what if we changed our code in the calculator? Then our tests would still pass. So quite obviously, what we should have done in our tests was to actually assert the actual result of the calculator. Pretty simple, but it illustrates perfectly what mutation test does. So in this example here, your test wasn't thorough enough. It wasn't expecting the concrete kind of output that you wanted. You allowed something to happen inside your service. Thank you. So what this will help you do is, as tests often do, is that it will help you, create better services, refactor the stuff that you are not able to test thoroughly, and quite frankly, this will make your code much more robust than 100% code coverage will do. I really love it. Yeah. Yeah, so functional tests. I did this Sylius plugin was partly done with me and Mateusz from Commerce Weavers, and I don't know if you know Mateusz, but he's kind of a big proponent for Behat, and I have kind of a love-hate, mostly hate, relationship with Behat. So we kind of agreed that we would do the tests, we would do some functional tests, but not Behat. So what we introduced were some simple tests like this, where we, again, the Sylius plugin, but as you can see here, the test is very simple. But behind the scenes, a lot of things are happening here, right? So it actually searches the search engine. Of course, there's some setup behind this. You need the database, you need the fixtures. We need to know the fixtures because we are asserting, 8 results in this case, and that's fine. You'll see that later how we do that. But very simple, I believe. Another plugin that I did also with Matterhoosh. In fact, this is a plugin where you're allowed to edit the orders inside Sylius. A bit more setup inside the code. We need the order, and we need some code to actually edit the order, and then we'll assert some things. But once again, I believe if you read the code, pretty self-explanatory. Again, lots of things are happening in the backend, right? Yeah. I'm a big proponent for this, because what I see a lot of times is that people, if they use SARM, they'll use level 2 or even level 4. And if they use PHP Stan, which I don't, so I don't know what it is, but I know that Max is the most annoying one, and they don't do that. I just don't understand why. The argument is usually that you need some boilerplate code, something like this. Or this example where I created my own stuff just to make SARM understand something. There are a lot of examples. This one with the conditional return. The idea is that you tell SARM these things and your code will be better, right? And your AI, whatever you use, will be able to actually generate these things. So I don't believe you have really an excuse, in my opinion. What I can guarantee you is the same as with tests. When you do this, you will figure out places in your code that needs refactoring. Maybe you've returned way too many arrays instead of objects. Maybe you just need to, put things into more services to make it, better typed. I absolutely love it. It gives me kind of a certainty a lot of times to use it on the most annoying level or best level. I really needed a slide about GitHub Actions because I absolutely love GitHub Actions. This is a very simple example that will just do or enforce my coding standards, lint some things. Another example, which is a bit more interesting, is dependency analysis. We saw at the very beginning that I said that you should define all your dependencies. This is the step that enforces that. As you can see here, I test a matrix of things. So I test PHP 8.1, 8.2, 8.3 should have been there, obviously. I also test the lowest and the highest dependencies. So if people have not upgraded for a bit, I also I can't be sure, obviously, but I kind of want to test my plugin in the lowest possible matrix of dependencies. And I want to test for Symfony 5.4 and 6.4 in this case. I do a very small trick to do that with Symfony. I include the Flex Composer plugin, and then I set this environment variable that will then enforce the Symfony version of the given matrix. What I've also discovered a lot of times is that if I keep the development section just with Sylius plugins, this is not much the case when I do Symfony bundles, but there can be some interference with package replacement and some stuff in Composer. So what I actually do in plugins is that I remove the whole development section so it doesn't interfere with anything, and then I add the tool that I need, in this case the dependency analysis tool, and I run it. Pretty simple. This example here is from before. This is the mail search one, where you need the mail search instance, and there'll be some setup, obviously. We'll set up the database, the schema, the fixtures. We'll also index the fixtures in the search engine, and then we'll run our test suite, right? I have these other jobs as well that will do other stuff. Inside my plugin skeleton that I think you should use, you'll find all these code quality tools, and they'll be set up. The workflows will be set up, so it's easy to get started. This was the last tip, but I also have two things that I call call to actions. This is an obvious thing, probably for most of you. when I say start using AI, I don't mean ChatGPT or anything like that. I mean you actually need to dive deep into that agent space now. I've used it for a couple of months. First the Claude agent, and now that JetBrains a month or two, I don't know, ago introduced the Juni agent. I just bought the biggest package and then started using it. I believe there's kind of we're on the verge of something new, obviously, as you probably all agree, and it would be great if the Sylius community was not left behind in this scenario. It gives you an immense productivity boost, I believe, if you do it right. What I've done, I started obviously with the simple stuff. I started with translations. It's incredibly good at refactoring things, moving things around, things that I would use spend an hour doing. I'll just write a prompt now. It'll take 5 minutes. Then I've moved on lately a lot. I try to force myself to, because I'm a developer. I suck at communication, and now I need to talk, right, or write to this AI. But what I've forced myself to do is that now I try to do together with Juni a big feature. So I'll write the outline of my feature. So that would be 2, 3, 4, 5 lines of bad communication, and then we'll kind of go back and forth a few times. Then Juni will output an insane document, telling it what it believes you should do. Go back and forth, and then we'll divide that into tasks again with Juni, and we'll have Juni implemented. That's a workflow I'm trying to do now, just to get kind of on top of the AI game. This one, another call to action. Start building publicly. When I start, there are some great guys here like Antoine and Grégoire, and insane coders, right? and maybe you feel kind of humble as I really do when I see their code, but just get it out there. When you build publicly, you will produce better code, you will learn more, you will get feedback from the community, and the Sylius community is great, very open, very helpful. So yeah, that was it. Any questions?